Hey, are you watching at work? No? Okay, is it okay to show some raunchy stuff now? Yeah? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Oh god, this is Catan Starfarers. We've taken many a look at Catan and reviewed every Catan expansion. Man, that was a trip. And now we're here for Catan Starfarers. Thank you, Catan Studio, for sending us these very suggestive motherships.
What the heck?
Oh, by the way, this box is normally $100. Holy cow, that's an entire Benjamin for a board game, especially in 2023, since the original design of this is from 1999. So screw the roads, nights, and cities, we're traveling to distant planetary systems, to infinity and beyond. There's gonna be warpoles, space pirates, and even shaking of balls. Can Catan Starfarers hold up to its price? Well, we first played it twice. One of the games digitally. Then we had one game in real life with 4 players we didn't get quite to finish, but we'll talk about that later in the review. Oh, also this review is all with the assumption you've played Catan before. So now let's, how to play! Goal is to hit 15 victory points, not 10 like normal Catan, 15 points. To get points, you'll want to construct buildings across space called colonies and spaceports, and do 3 other special things. 1. Become friends with the 4 different types of aliens by building trade outposts in their areas. 2. Defeat the pirates you'll find on some planets or heat up ice planets. 3. Amass fame through doing cool things in something called an encounter deck. Every turn you'll roll 2 dice, see what number comes up, and everyone gets those resources, just like normal Catan. But you also take some cards from something called the reserve pile, which is just a deck made up of every other resource in the game. If you're low in VP, your charity is 2 cards, then as you get more VP, you'll draw less. Then, just like normal Catan, you'll be allowed to trade with other players and build stuff. You can build anything on this sheet, but there's no cities in the game. There are only colonies, which are like settlements that produce 1 resource. You can upgrade a colony to a spaceport, which lets you build ships next to it, which then you can fly out to make more colonies. This will all make sense in the phase after building, where you take your mothership, shake the balls literally inside, and see what 2 balls you get, add up the amount. That's how much your ships can move this round. If you roll a black ball at all, your movement is always 3, and someone will draw an encounter card for you, which is a random event where you'll make some thematic decisions, like maybe pirates attack you, who knows, it's outer space. For moving ships, you can move each of them on 1 edge up to your movement this turn, and when they ever go next to an unexplored sector, aka fidget spinner looking thing, you reveal all the resource numbers there. If there's an ice or pirate planet, you can't make a colony adjacent to that yet. We'll talk about that in a bit. Otherwise, if after moving the area is unoccupied between 2 planets, you can make a ship a colony. Some other ships aren't meant to make colonies, but rather trade posts to befriend the aliens. If you ever move a trade ship to the middle of an alien outpost, you make a trade outpost, look through their pile of cards, and take whichever one you want. It's a passive ability you have for the rest of the game. Also, if you are first to make a trade outpost or have the most trade outposts there, the aliens become your buddy, and that's 2 points. But you can only place the trade outpost if you have as many freight pods as there are outposts there. So yeah, you're going to be upgrading your mothership, which is just a cool area to put upgrades. You can buy these when it's time to build stuff on a turn. They all are permanent and give slightly more options the more you build. That's all you need to know for now. Hey, but this is Catan, so what about if I roll a 7? Now if you have 8 or more cards, you must discard half. And there's no robber, but you still get to steal a card from someone randomly. Okay, that's the bare bones of the game. You basically just roll your Catan dice, get resources there, then get your charity resources, then you can build/trade, then shake your mothership, see how you can move your ships. Move all your ships. Whoever hits 15 points immediately wins the game. More info in the bros. Catan Starfarers is definitely a deluxe feeling game in terms of components. I mean, we can't escape the sheer girth, size of these big motherships. They're actually rock hard and strong, won't be breaking anytime soon, especially compared to the 1999 original version that I've read about. You load them up with 5 colored balls when you get the game, and it's certainly a unique experience to shake that big long ship on your turn and see what balls come out of the bottom. For reference, the ship is about the same width as a cup. The 3 upgrades to your mothership are distinct looking and are great to clip on. Shout out to the cannon for sliding in very smoothly to the top. Throughout the game, your mother will just look cooler and cooler. Definitely feels like you're getting more teched out to go further into space. Every player has a completely new set of pieces, with the plastic colonies, trade posts, and shipyard to make a spaceport. See these 3 smaller ships? They go on top of the other pieces super well and never fall off while playing. There's a nice inclusion of a victory point marker now, so you'll never forget how much VP people have. Oh, and the dice are higher quality than usual, seem to have some type of marble looking plastic. Then there's an insert for absolutely everything. This is one of the best inserts I've seen, with slots for your long ships, multiple trays to take off for cards and upgrades, and lots of plastic bags included too. This tray even has a conversion reference printed on it. As for art, we have to talk about the cool aliens who get to befriend with the 20 different cards, each with their own homie. The merchants, scientists, etc. all look quite endearing and cool to have names on them for some immersion. There's also 5 completely different resource cards now, which are all super vivid and won't get confused with each other in hand. Before we get into gameplay pros, Catan Starfarers is quite easy to learn. It has the awesome approach of a shorter rulebook, then an expanded almanac to reference later. You can jump in with the beginner setup, read the well-structured 7 pages of rules, then start playing with very little hiccups. The player aids are also exceptional, with pretty much the entire game explained there. Even the new resources are named, so you know what to call them when you're trading. Another sheet goes over all the sources of victory points, and then the turn overview really nicely explains how to do the mothership ball rolling every turn. Just add up those balls. Gameplay pros time. So let's talk about the new type of positioning, which leads to some new strategy here. The big idea of Catan Starfarers is that now you no longer have roads, but instead you have these smaller ships that you move around every turn. With the said ships, you want to determine what's the best movement for them. You're effectively positioning for 3 things in Starfarers. 1, spaces to build colonies, probably with better numbers. 2, the mid to late game chance to kill pirates or burn planets to get points. 3, trade posts to get passive abilities and get friendship alien points. So every turn you get to move all your ships with those in mind. And you want to consider where to place your spaceports, which are upgraded colonies, which is where you deploy your ships. And you need new ships because ships constantly become buildings. You may want to get a spaceport really close to trade posts if you're going for those. Or maybe you want a second spaceport to be built as soon as possible and build it closer to your home. That way you can start spawning ships slightly further from the initial placements faster. Time to talk about the new strategies. So not only are you concerned about building placement by turning your ships into actual buildings, but you're also thinking about what upgrades to get on your mothership to help all of your ship positioning. If you've unraveled pirate bases, then maybe you go a bunch of cannons to shoot down those pirates and get points. Unraveled icy planets will just cause global warming on them and inconvenient truth them to get some points. Want to move your ships a lot around the map? Well then just get boosters to +1 movement for each booster you build. So late game, you could just have your ships moving 9 spaces every turn. The alien decks give lots of opportunity to expand upon your strategy, since they give so many nice benefits. The red scientists give mothership upgrades. The yellow merchants are Starfarers equivalents of ports to trade resources at a better rate. The green folk help your economy. You can just get extra cards now. The blue diplomats are the most varied. You can buy fame, which is kind of like victory points. You can expand your hand size, or even take from the rich if you're behind. Starfarers really rewards players who understand each alien deck, then rush the upgrade they want when they trade ship into the outpost, then get the +2 victory points from being the first there. The final gameplay pro is a new catch-up mechanic, where if you're behind on victory points, you get the charity every round. You get 2 cards from charity on your turn. This is actually doing a lot of clever things. First, it's giving everyone more resources throughout the game, as everyone has to be in the low VP area at some point, and this is going to keep turns moving smoothly and to compensate for the lack of cities in the game. 2, it's allowing for comebacks to be more possible, at least for the more inexperienced groups, as stragglers are getting extra income a turn of random cards, meaning that endgame their economy might still be good when behind, so they can make some power plays, then steal the alien friendship for a 4-point swing, then win the game. Finally, 3, the charity can encourage you to pace your VP gain in a clever way. You want to stay in the low VP area as long as possible for free resources. Maybe you don't build that colony yet? When the time is right, then you can spike up like crazy and contest to win. Cons! For visual cons, I know we were praising art before, but there's some stuff that is kind of hard to make out. For starters, the ships. We have the trade ships and the colony ships that look a little too similar. Even with the zoom in, the size is the distinguishing factor while ships are flying around the map, not the shape. So then why not just have a square versus a circle instead of a small hexagon versus a small pentagon? Also, let's talk about the map. You may have noticed that they completely removed the probability pips on the resource numbers. This was done because each Starfarer circle has to be much smaller than base Catan because there are more hexes in space. Oh, by the way, each number token takes up way more of the hex art than normal Catan, but usually not too annoying in practice. Starfarers is in a bit of a weird spot here, because if Catan Studio was to make the board bigger, they're probably afraid it wouldn't fit on the more casual audience's tables, or maybe the map wouldn't fit in the current size box. With the current map size, we would just ask for them to make the token a little bit bigger, take the loss in clarity in seeing the resource they're on, and put the pips back on if they can. The next con has to do with some annoying terminology, aka what Catan Starfarers calls some. I know this only applies to us because we've played Catan before, but let's be real, if you're watching this video, I'm like 99.9999% sure you've played Catan before, so this applies to you. When talking about Starfarers resources, the ore is this red card. But in normal Catan, have you ever called stone ore? If you are in that boat, when trading ore, you're gonna get confused why the heck it's a red card that doesn't function like stone ore. Also, having the word ore printed as a resource where it could be mistaken for ore as in like the and or gets a little confusing sometimes. The red ore should just be called metal, then you have red metal, no problem. The next terminology thing isn't as bad, but it's calling this green bush food. It really does not look like food, okay? I understand that we're supposed to be in the future, but I doubt many humans associate this green monkey brain as food. It's at best some weird circular salad. Just make this look more like food. It could even look like astronaut food. Gameplay cons. So we have this encounter deck we didn't talk about much yet, which by the way is if you roll a black ball in your mothership, which is 40% chance, then you draw a encounter card and someone else reads you the prompt on it. These encounter cards are trying to add more flavor into this universe of Catan and then also give you some yes, no questions for events to add some more unpredictability to a turn. These just have so much wild variance, it's unhealthy to outcomes of the entire game. A good chunk of the encounters ask you to spend a certain amount of resources, and then who knows what will happen. And sometimes you don't have any resources either, like if you buy a bunch of stuff. So then you auto choose the 0 outcome, which is usually the worst, but not always. It's all random. What are bad things that can happen? Well, you can lose upgrades or lose fame, which is half a victory point. These are okay and more just annoying to be victim to. But then at worst, you can have a ship not move for that turn, which can set you back an entire turn in a game where movement is so crucial. You could have built a colony to get resources, but now you have to wait around. Good results also give you upgrade or fame. You can also get free resources, but then at best, you can get a sudden trade ship out of nowhere, and you can move it right away. What the actual hell, that tempo and getting 4 free resources channeled to a ship. Another busted boon is getting to do a warp jump, where you can literally teleport a ship anywhere on the map, and that early game to go suddenly across the map puts you so ahead in positioning. Despite all the smoke and mirrors of having a fancy mothership, shaking those balls is actually just equivalent to rolling a d10. You cannot manipulate this roll, you cannot manipulate the encounter draw, and for your answer, okay sure, sometimes you can kind of predict what's a good answer. If it's asking you to flee a random enemy, then you probably need a lot of boosters. It's not just, oh, randomness was bad. The encounter deck is so pivotal to outcomes, it's wild. I got a trade ship out of nowhere once. Then I could just move into trade post to suddenly get that trade post, and then that's the alien friendship. That's a 4-point swing out of nowhere. Other times, the player that was already behind was getting punished and not being able to move their only ship, so they were basically just stuck in the water. Man, it's like this black ball you roll is blue balling you sometimes. Starfarers doubles down on the randomness of encounters because there's 2 encounters called wear and tear. This not only hurts whoever has the most ship upgrades, to randomly slow down a possible winner, it resets the 32 card deck. So yeah, you definitely can't count cards to get an idea of what could hit you late game. Oh, by the way, one wear and tear straight up gives whoever has the most freight pods half a point. The other doesn't. Why? I'm not exactly sure. If I had to guess, they didn't want people rushing freight pods to try to milk the encounter deck for points. Still, the wears and tears should have had the same text to lessen the variance. There's already so much variance in this encounter deck. A house rule to help alleviate the encounter randomness is to use the extra provided colored balls to tweak your mothership. So then the black ball is less likely to come up. As for the actual encounter deck, there could be at least some cost to spawning a trade ship suddenly, and it should not be movable on the turn you get it. Then constrain the teleportation across the map to maybe half the map or make it cost something big. It seems like the designers wanted the encounter system to be swingy, so these are just some ways to rope it in a little. There's also randomness for when the pirate and ice planets are accomplished. See, you get 1 VP for taking them, then you take a random other token to replace it. This could be a 9 or it could be an 11. That's a notable difference, and not sure why you don't know what number it is beforehand, since that could really inform your decision to move all the way there in a game where wasting movement really matters. Last con, let's talk about the replayability. So there's 2 to 3-ish variants that aren't that nuanced. And if you do the non-beginner mode, well then you just draft your opening locations and then you draft a upgrade for your ship initially. It's not that much different from base Catan. So the actual variants are basically, if you want to change the game board, you just deal out the sectors semi-randomly. In the Explorer variant, you deal out semi-randomly, but leave them all face down. In the Wild Space variant, you just deal them out completely randomly. Sure, changing the location of the sectors does change the strategies a little bit, but you're not really adding another layer to the game. This is more disappointing when looking at Starfarers' immediate rivals of any Catan expansion, which come with a ton of meaningful variants. More on that in scoring. To close up replayability, we gotta bring up the encounters again, because there's a lot of repeating prompts. There's only 10 prompts, so by the time your second game rolls around, you're gonna be reading an encounter with the merchant for likely the 6th time or so. So the thematic magic is dissipating into the Ethereum. Since the encounter deck isn't meant to be taken seriously anyways with its wear and tear shuffling, why not just add more silly prompts? Nitpicks, don't affect scoring. Starting on components, why the heck is there another token for the pirate and ice planets? I understand that it's bigger and easier to see, but is this needed when you discard the pirate or ice token anyways when you accomplish the task? You can just take that token instead of needing all these extra tokens that have the exact same thing printed on them. Then there's some slight confusion on what an alien civilization is because there's supposed to be 5, but there's only 4 decks. What the heck? So it turns out that the last alien civilization are the Travelers that don't exist in these decks, but instead only in the encounter deck. Only in here. They don't have an outpost, so you can't befriend them, they don't give passives. Not really sure why they're lumped in with the alien civilizations to begin with. Here's one that barely escaped the cons. Catan Starfarers generally runs longer than the printed 2 hours. We checked in over 2 hours and 15 minutes for both of our 3-player games. There are just things that add up to boost the time up. Players need to read encounter cards for each other, look through the alien cards, and also think about trading resources they get from charity. There's no set time to this game, rather just the goal of getting 15 points. So there could be groups that fight over the alien friendship for prolonged games. If your group barely trades, then yeah, you could probably finish this in about an hour and a half, but then why are you playing Catan if you're not trading? Scoring! Now it's time for a recommender score, where we try to evaluate the game given the aforementioned pros and cons, with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea. For reference, we rated base Catan a 7 out of 10 recommender score. And so Catan Starfarers is going to get a recommender score of 4 out of 10. It is below average. This would have been a 5 out of 10, but the MSRP is $100. $100. That really is the breaking point for all this. We can understand why the price is so high because of these motherships. Pretty unique thing, but it's really stretching this game's value when you compare it to other games like the asymmetric Euro Scythe, which has more replayability, plastic, wood, and even art in the box. Again, with Starfarers, you better really enjoy shaking these plastic ships. If I were to ask most people, why do you like Catan? I'd imagine most of what they like about Catan isn't reflected in this Catan. Do you like the road placement counterplay? Not here. Do you like the mind games from Knights, the Monopoly card, and even hidden VP? There's no development cards here. Do you like a ramping economy of getting tons of resources? That's not really here because cities are gone, and you get 2 charity on your turn from the beginning of the game. Do you like socializing with your friends in a low complexity of game? Kind of not here again. Catan Starfarers has trading, but a little less, and definitely has more rules overhead. If you're going to be getting something that's more expensive and bigger than Catan, well, it better be doing its new things well. Roads and cities have been transformed to ships and spaceports. So then you can space travel every turn, you can upgrade your mothership, and then you can get all these random encounters here. But are these really things you want out of the Catan experience? Starfarers really doubles down on 2 core ideas: ships to move and explore, and low conflict. There's a ton of upgrade opportunities for your ships, and you move ships every round to seek out points. Then there's low conflict in ships not blocking each other's movement. Then the robber is literally removed from the game. There goes any negotiation about robber placement. Even weirder, you roll a 7, you get your steal, but then every other player except for you draws a card, so rolling a 7 is mostly helping your opponents. Oh, and then you can't even use ships to block others from making colonies, as ships can't stay in a potential colony place for more than 1 turn. If we combine those ideas with the charity and random encounter system, you're never out of a game of Starfarers like you might be with base Catan if you get boxed in by someone's road counterplay. But at the same time, winning Starfarers might not be that rewarding because players might get a lucky or unlucky encounter on a crucial turn. So how really does the trading compare? Because I did say it was a little less. I can't call it outright bad, it's just altered in some funny ways, because yes, you have more incentive to trade because there's more things to buy on your turn. It never hurts to have an extra booster to move. But, everyone is getting charity RNG draws on their turn, so you might not want to trade for something if you can just RNG draw it on your turn. Wow, look, it's a resource I don't normally have access to. I just drew it. Another kicker is that everyone has actually built-in ports in this game. Every resource except for one trades at a 3-to-1 ratio, and then that other resource trades for a 2-to-1 ratio. So yeah, I could totally see people not trading if they're cutthroat or just trust in their RNG draws. The difference between 3 and 4 players doesn't really matter much in trading, and then also the map is always exactly the same. These are all things that aren't particularly compelling about Starfarers, hence the average score barring price. What are some reasons to pick it up? Well, if you don't like the robber anything in the development deck or being locked into resources you start on without trading, this might be something for you. Or if you like the idea of exploring, grab at different alien passives every turn, and even hearing random stories, and maybe defeating space pirates with cannons, this could be a cool casual fling. But I'm also going to try to shake you awake and say this is 2023, and Catan Starfarers is a game that came out originally in 1999. With the 20 years of development since then, there's a lot more space games you could be playing. These games all handle randomness better. To those who are coming from only playing Catan, don't be afraid of other board games. Just because they don't say Catan on them doesn't mean they're scary. Within the Catan extended universe, our go-to recommendations are still Seafarers and Traders and Barbarians. Seafarers gives a quick edition of building across water and has meaningful variants with much different maps. Traders and Barbarians has the most bang for buck with a ton of modules to try. It also has a variant where you move stuff after you roll dice. It's almost like that and Starfarers are made from the same studio just after way more years of refinement. And if you're in love with the movement of pieces every turn, you may want to look into Explorers and Pirates, which has ships to sail across the 7 seas with guaranteed movement and no encounters. And you still get to fight pirates if you want. To end, if you were playing games in the 1990s, Starfarers is likely charming nostalgia. Cool to look at, touch the motherships, and then move on. My personal score for Catan Starfarers is going to be a 3 out of 10. I have a bad time with it. For reference, my personal score for Catan is still a 6 out of 10. I enjoy the trading of resources, some placement nuance, some mind games with development cards, and the game rarely outstays its welcome. I wouldn't say Starfarers is making me unhappy all the time though, and it was almost a 4 out of 10. I actually do have some interest in moving the ships around, getting alien upgrades to follow a strategy, and even deciding when to place spaceports. The race to be the friendliest with the most aliens encourages me to keep tabs on everyone else. And the possibility of trading at least somewhat engages me, but I'll get back to that. Starfarers has 3 core problems for me. Number 1, it's just too long for what it is. So base Catan is about an hour 15. That's fine, the time passes pretty smoothly with everyone ramping up with more interaction on the board. Starfarers is at least 2 hours with no ramping economy. And then there's downtime as encounter cards get flipped over, we have to trudge through that. And sometimes I don't even care about where other people are positioning on the board because there's no threat of them boxing me in on the map. Actually, yeah, this ties into the second problem. Starfarers feels too long because there's just not enough conflict to keep me engaged outside the basic theme of roll dice, build, trade, move. Why am I not getting to place a robber and then haggle over it? Why can people draw resources out of their butt I'm supposed to trade them for? Why am I building cannons to fight NPC pirates once or twice? If those cannons could actually do something against my opponents, I'd be way more interested in getting them. Lastly, I found Starfarers to be the worst implementation of encounter cards in a game I've ever seen, and this was a straw that broke the camel's back to bring the score to a 3 out of 10. Encounter cards are a mechanic that I've always been a little bit on the fence about in competitive play. Regularly forcing everyone to pause what they're doing to have another person read stuff aloud while you're thinking of your own strategy feels jarring. Again, encounter cards are compelling when they're thematic. But I found the Starfarers encounter cards to be woefully dry, since the game doesn't have much theme anyways, and with outcomes so laughable, I lose any sense of immersion. Quick tangent here to praise Eldritch Horror though, because I like encounter cards there, where the writing is actually very interesting in a compelling world. And it being a cooperative Ameritrash game, the encounters are the point to expand the globetrotting narrative. For a 2-hour game, if I'm not playing for theme and story, which Starfarers doesn't really have, I'm playing to win. And how can I play to win with this encounter deck? It's gone to the point where every turn I shake this mothership and I'm like, no black, no black. It's like Vegas. No black, no black, no black, no black, no black, no black, no black. If there were no encounters, way more conflict, and a runtime of about half the time, I could be convinced to play Starfarers again. But then in that case, why not just play normal Catan? Catan is easier to play with less rules and components, more of my friends are down to play it, and I can actually expand upon it if I want to. If I want a space theme, I don't need to be playing Catan for that. I don't need these Happy Meal looking motherships that make me feel inappropriate. I can't help but think for every turn of Starfarers, why am I not just playing Catan? Why am I not just playing Catan? Catan Studio, you son of a gun! You've gotten me to think more about playing Catan. Now I'm thinking about what combinations of expansions I can use that is far better than playing Starfarers, so Catan is really on my mind now. Catan Studio wins again. Thanks for watching the video, guys. That was Catan Starfarers, it being sent to us to not affect scoring, and also let me know what you think about Catan and what is your favorite expansion if you ever tried Catan Starfarers. The MSRP is a little bit high for sure. Anyways, thank you to all our patrons right here for making videos like this possible. And then we also got our Mad Lads and Cardboard right here. Thank you guys so much. Let me know what you think about this game. More stuff coming as usual. Bye-bye.